Guys stack up. One lawmaker now wants these whistleblowers back on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman Dep.Luna heading up the task force on declassification and transparency. She says that includes UAPs. And just days ago, she shared she's hoping to get Grush and Elizondo, as well as officials from the Pentagon's UAP investigation office, together. The group could meet in a sensitive compartmented information facility that's also known as a SCIF to share what is known. And for more, we are joined by News Nation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. Ross, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Natasha. Good evening.
Is this game-changing? Because Congresswoman Luna wants to hear more from these key figures who, by the way, you have spoken on, you have brought to News Nation, like David Grush, like Luis Elizondo. Talk to us about getting these whistleblowers into a SCIF. What will that be able to reveal that hasn't been revealed before?
Well, frankly, I have to be honest with you, Natasha, and say it's not worth a hill of beans unless the committee that Congresswoman Dep.Luna leads, or rather the task force that she leads, is given the resources and the powers to do its job. At the moment, they're still trying to figure out whether or not they can get the security classifications of David Grush, for example, restored so that David can give evidence inside that SCIF, knowing that he's not breaching any national security obligations. One of the problems we've got at the moment is we've been promised a lot by the new administration, and we should hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they are leading and honouring those obligations. But the simple fact is, at the moment, Dep.Luna's task force, it's a 6-month task force. She's pledged to look at not just UAPs, but also investigate the assassination of JFK and the release of those files, organise the release of the Epstein files, investigate Martin Luther King and RFK's murders as well. And frankly, I don't think there's much chance of her doing that within the 6-month period. She doesn't even have the powers of subpoena. They have to come from the actual Oversight and Accountability Committee Chairman, James Comer. So a lot of people, myself included, are getting increasingly sceptical that the administration is promising a lot to get a quick headline, but are they actually going to follow through and give the well-motivated and well-intentioned Congresswoman Luna the powers she needs? Just this week, to make my point, she had to actually publicly tweet out to the new Attorney General that the Department of Justice was failing to respond to her task force's request for access to files. And she was resorted to actually having to publicly tweet her frustration to Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, that essentially they're not getting a response from the Department of Justice. So a lot of talk, a lot of jaw, but are we going to see any action? I think we're entitled to be sceptical.
I hear that skepticism loud and clear, and you are not alone in this, Ross. With the time we have, I do want to get to some exclusive testimony that you heard in the very latest episode of the Reality Check podcast. An underwater explorer describing a strange circular structure on the floor of the Baltic Sea appearing to look like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Let's take a listen together.
It's 60 meters. And for me and Peter and all the other crew members, we have never, ever seen anything big like that.
Yeah, apparently measuring just under 200 feet. So tell us more about what's being called the Baltic Sea anomaly.
What's exciting about this object, and this is what Dennis Asberg, a well-known underwater explorer, tells me in this edition of Reality Check, is it's not just that it's a solid object. It's the fact that it's an object that appears to show signs from the scans that they've done of human cutting. Somebody's manipulated that object and cut shapes into it. There are square-shaped edges, exact 90-degree angles. There are etches that look like squares leading into some kind of doorway. So there is a suggestion that this object is somehow some kind of constructed object. Nobody's saying it's a spaceship. Mr. Asberg is not saying that. He's never said that, and he's been mocked for ever, a lot of people have tried to debunk him for suggesting that, which he never did. What is a possibility, I think, is that this is something that has fallen from the orbit, or more importantly, maybe it's something that was there before the Baltic Sea filled in, which would be very interesting, Natasha, because the last time the Baltic Sea was empty was about 15,000 years ago, well before known human civilization. But what really caught my attention was at the end of the documentary, The Mystery Beneath, there's a much more high resolution scan that you were able to repair from corrupted computer files of another scan that was done.
Yep.
Describe to me what you see on that scan, and I'm talking about the track of the object.
Yeah, what you mean is the multi-beam image we have. It is a round object, 60 meters, and then you have, as you said yourself, 1,500 meters of a track on the bottom. And before that, you have like a mountain with a canyon in it. It looks like, if you play with your mind, it looks like something have crashed into the mountain and then slide on the bottom.
Does look like a crashed spaceship, because you've got what looks like a gouge through that mountain. Then you've got an obvious track going across the sea floor for 1.5 kilometers. And then you've got the object itself sitting on a mound of silt. It looks like an underwater crash.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's what we all thought when we saw the pictures. We laugh at it, but at the same time, I take it serious. I think we have found something very, very interesting, and we must be very careful to talk about people about this when we're coming home to the harbor again.
Okay, so let's talk about the hole with the frame. Talk me through the specifics of that image, and we'll put that image in here.
Yeah, we use the ROV, the robot, and we have the multi-beam or sonar on the ROV. So it's a blue view sonar. You have a 2D image of the object you see in front of you, and when we look down at the object, because with the usual camera, the visibility is almost zero. Sometimes you get 30 centimeters or 1 meter or something. But in this case, we use the sonar, and when we look down at the object, we see all the corridors, the angles, but we also see this hole 2 meters in diameter with a frame. And we were very surprised about that, of course.
So is it exact right angles? Have you been able to measure the accuracy of those angles? I mean, could it be just a natural rock formation that's shaped like a right angle?
When I have talked to people, scientists, about that, and they have seen the pictures and all the data, they say, this is very interesting. I have never seen anything like that before. So it's only on that spot also. It's not, we have nothing else there. It's this thing. And then when you look at this round thing, you have all these corners and holes and frames and so on. And it's 90 degrees angles, yeah.
There is another feature that really intrigued me, and it looks like a triangle with some kind of hole in the middle of it. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, that's, it was not so long ago I found that. I have so much data and films and from the expeditions we have out there. We have been there a couple of times. The last time we were there was 2019. And I remember so well that time because we had a salvage job together with colleagues from Finland. And they were quite funny about this with the object in the Baltic Sea. And they said to me, Dennis, it's a rock. It's a rock. Yeah, perhaps it is, but a very interesting rock. Have you seen anything? No, but it's a rock. Okay, but next time we're going to go out on the Baltic Sea, you come with us with your own equipment and look at yourself. Look at this thing yourself. And they did. They did. They follow us on the ship. They used their own equipment, and even he, the person that have laughed at me, say, Dennis, this is man-made. This is constructed for sure. So,
Okay, so let's talk to the triangle. How did you obtain the image of the triangle?
wow, yeah. Because a situation we had in Sweden here with a submarine that we not have the chance to salvage. I have lots of time over, so I begin to go deeper into the pictures and analyze all the data I had. And then I found this odd thing, this sign, or as you said, the triangle with a hole in it. And I was quite surprised, because I have seen it, not seen the triangle, but I have seen the pictures, but I have never really get deep into the pictures. And I did, and I saw it.
So just to devil's advocate, Dennis, there's a phenomenon in UAP research called pareidolia, where we see things as humans and we put patterns to them. Our brains automatically look for patterns. Could it be that what we're doing is our brains are seeing patterns where essentially it's a natural formation?
Yeah, of course, can it be like that? But in this case, it's not one thing, it's not two things, it's lots of things only on this structure. So when you find something that sticks out, you want to search for more things that is odd and strange on this object. And I have done it, and I've seen so many strange things, not only this triangle and this frame, or it's lots of things that they are.
Okay, so I want that detail. Let's make your case. What are the strange things? What are the things that have convinced you that this object is constructed, that it's some form of artificial construction? It's not just a lump of rock sitting at the bottom of the Baltic Sea.
It's a number of things. I cannot say one thing. It's the triangle with a hole in it. That's one thing. It's it's a 60-meter diameter round thing that looks like it's separated from the bottom. You have this track on the bottom also, like 1,500 meters. You have these angles. You have these holes. We have also been with the ROV under it, in the front of it, if you can call it that. And see lots of strange things. It's like burn material, like something have burned on it. It have been upheated. That we have seen, and that's what we have experienced when we have been down there.
So you say that when you looked underneath the object, it showed some kind of burn, some kind of material that had oxidized somehow and blackened.
Yeah,
when we have been able to get a sample of that material? Have you been able to test that material?
No, we have not. We have not. That was very interesting, because one of our divers in the team, Stefan Hågeborn, he was. The task was to take a sample from the object. He did not manage to do that. It was too hard. And I remember when he coming up for the first time after he had been down there, he said, when I'm brushing off the sediment, it was black. And then I tried to take a sample. It was too difficult, Dennis, to take a sample.
Did he think it was rock? Was it consistent with being rock? I mean, could his chisel... I could see in the film he was using a hammer and chisel. I would have thought if it was basalt or some kind of hard rock, he would at least have been able to get a chip off it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was not down there. The only thing he mentioned for me was that it was something hard. I did not manage to take any samples from the object.
Right. So, I mean, obviously the burning is a mystery because that area of the Baltic Sea, there's no history of volcanic activity or magma
Exactly.
or anything.
No, it should not be. We should not be any signs of it. I have been on the Stockholm University and talked about that, and they're like, whoa, that cannot be from there. It must be from the Atlantic on the melting period. It's coming there. And
I just want to get my brain around the implications of this because you've got an object sitting 90 meters under the Baltic Sea, slap bang in the middle of the Baltic Sea. I know you keep the location secret, but the history of the Baltic Sea, as I understand it, is that it was created around about 14,000 to 12,000 years ago. But before that, it was basically a big lump of ice. And the implications of what you're saying are that that object, if it was there before that time, if it is a constructed object, it implies that it's some civilization before, say, 18,000 years ago when the Ice Age hit. True?
yeah, perhaps.
So
That's
the
my
implication
thought.
is, so it's either a prior human civilization or non-human civilization that's constructed that object and it's sitting there, and maybe it's a relic of some past civilization, or it's an object that's fallen from the sky, perhaps through re-entry, and landed on the ocean bed. So one of the other things I wanted to explore with you, Dennis, is you noticed other anomalies when you were on site. You had all sorts of weird things happening over the object. Can you talk me through what happened?
Yeah, lots of things have happened out there. The first time we were out there, we noticed that we have problems with our equipment. The ROV did not work properly. And I remember when Stefan was coming up and explained for me about taking samples, but he said also, Dennis, it's something strange because usually we have 4 to 5 Celsius plus down there. But now Dennis was 0. I have never experienced that before. So he was, very confused about the situation he had down there, and he explained for me. And that's not the only thing. Even his camera stopped working, the light stopped working, and when we talked about that, I said, okay, we have the same problem with the ROV, with the robot. The compass not working properly, and it feels like this thing or whatever it is don't want us to come near it. That's why we did not. It was very difficult to find the spot again with the ROV.
So you were getting some kind of electromagnetic interference with your technology.
Yeah.
Tell me about the radar. You were getting ghost images on the radar as well, weren't you?
Yeah, well, we had almost every time, but this time it was so clear. We have anchor over the object. We start preparing for the dive, and was blue sky. The sun was shining. No ship near us. We were totally alone that time. And then we look at the radar, and it's popping up like dots on the screen, like something is out there. And I remember Peter and I look at each other and say, okay, what is that? And it should not be anything out here. So I take we go out and look, and we did not see anything. But still, it's popping up everywhere around us. And I'm talking about the area of 150, 200 meters from the ship. And we have no ship there. So, yeah.
The other thing I was fascinated by is you became aware, didn't you, that there were other potential foreign navies in the area watching, perhaps taking an interest in what you were doing. Tell me what
Yeah.
you saw.
Wow, that was a little scary, I must say, because we have anchored. That's another time we have anchored and begin to prepare for the dive and using the ROV at that time, and then it's popping up lots of ship, and that was ship. It was no ghosts. That was the Navy. It was the NATO. Even the Swedish Navy with the coast corvette was down very close to us also. Remember, this is on Finnish economic zone. This is not the Swedish water. And even the Swedes were there with the ships. But must be 10, 15 ships around us, laying there, lurking around.
So from which countries?
It was NATO. It was British. It was American. It was German ships. It was French ships. Yeah, lots of ships it was.
So there were 10 to 15 ships
Yeah,
close to where you were operating.
exactly. And we have filmed it also.
Was there any plausible explanation for why they were there so close to you?
Not really. I have no clue. It was nothing about the NATO should have no exercise, nothing about that.
And did you ask them? Did you hail them on the radio and ask them why they were taking such a close interest?
Yes, I did. I called them on the radio and asked them why they are so close to us, because we have divers in the water. And they were friendly, so they move away, perhaps a couple of 100 meters.
What did they say? What was their explanation for why they were taking such a close interest?
They did not give me an explanation at all. Not at all. But
I understand.
Later, that was interesting because I had a meeting in the headquarters in the Swedish Navy about this later. And I asked one of the officers down there, you have a ship down there very close to us. Do you know about that? And why did you do that? And so on. And he just looked at me. No, I have no information about that. So that was quite interesting. Of course they know.
There was also that the Russians took an interest in you. Apparently there was a submarine emitting some signal that you were able to detect.
Because of lots of things have happened out there, I begin to something is going on out here. It's not only could be interesting in this, must be others also. So I remember when I was home, I asked a company to borrow equipment to analyze data signals, and I borrowed this thing, and I have the dummy there that tells me turn off every equipment you have on the boat, telephones, satellite telephones, and radar, and we did it. We turn off everything, blackout totally on the boat. And then I just push on enter, and I did the scanning of the signals. And when we were ready with that, I when we come back to Stockholm, I leave the information to this company, and they did the analysis of it, and I get the answer that we have the machine have noticed a signal that is dedicated to the Russian Navy. So I did not see any submarines. I did not see any submarines, and I did not see any Russian ships. But the signal was there.
This is getting more and more intriguing. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I asked you about the material on the bottom of the object, and I think you mentioned that you hadn't had it tested, but I did see an interview where you mentioned that you'd sent a sample off to, was it Israel for testing?
Yeah.
What did you send off for testing, and what results did you get?
No, we managed to take loose stones from the object laying on the object, because we did not manage to take any samples directly from the object. And that's why something must take up from that. So when I saw these stones, it was like a burned thing on it. So it was quite interesting to see it. And then I decided to send it down to Israel because they have contacted me and they were very curious about that and they want to do analyze on it. And okay, why not? I send it down there. And yes, I got the answer from them. And I did get two answers from them. One on paper and one not really on paper. But the first I got, what have you found? How do you find some high-tech submarine? And I was, what do you mean by that? And then after that, I got a more accurate data on it, or I don't know. But they find biologic bone material on it.
Burned material. Sorry, is that burned material?
Yeah, burn material on it.
Right. So where on earth would burning come from 90 meters underwater in the Baltic Sea?
That's the good question. I have no clue.
I mean, I guess there's a mystery there, isn't there? And just so I'm clear and just so our audience understand, when you scan all around that area in the Baltic Sea, are there any other kinds of rock outcrops that might remotely resemble the object that you've detected?
No. I mean, round things you can have from old mines that have exploded. But then we're talking about 5 to 10 meters in diameter. That you can find, of course. But
Right.
Now we're talking about 60 meters. And it's not it's not like a crater either. It's something that's sticking up.
And it's not something that's fallen off a boat. It's not an old boat, or it's not an old... I mean, one of the explanations I saw was that it might be a reel from a cable company laying cables, but then it was pointed out that even the largest cable reel is only a fraction of the size of this object. Is there any kind of prosaic explanation that you can think of that might plausibly explain that object, if it is, as you believe it is, a constructed object?
No, I don't know. It cannot be something from the ship that have fallen off. It's too big.
So,
No.
what are you doing now? I mean, obviously, you've done 2 visits to the site. Are you going to go back and do more study?
That's my goal, Ross. That's my goal. I have been since I found it. It's have not been easy, I must say.
You've copped a lot of attacks, haven't you? In fact, I think there was a Fox News article that outright accused you of being a scammer, that essentially the whole thing was just a rock. Had Fox News done any research before they made that claim?
No, they did not. And I was so angry and frustrated because at that time I did my best to convince scientists, people with the knowledge to help me understand what I have we have there out there. And Fox News going out with the news that this is a rock without talking to me, without knowing where the spot is, the position, nothing. And I was so surprised. I sent them a mail also. I didn't, of course, not get the answer. And asked them, why are you going out with this information? You have not spoken to me. You have not been on the spot. You don't even know where it is. And
did they say where they got that information from?
No, they did not answer me. So
I guess what I find fascinating, Dennis, is there are parallels with the UAP subject here, because there are a lot of people who become armchair experts when anybody suggests that there's anomalous explanations for UAPs. And all you're arguing for, you're not saying, are you, that this is a flying saucer or indeed necessarily that it's a constructed object.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that the evidence suggests that it is a constructed object and that you would like to do further investigation. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's how it have been from the beginning. It is something in my mind. It's for me. It have been since day one something that is so odd and must be constructed. And is if it is something is constructed on the spot, I don't know. And if it's falling down from the sky, I don't know. But I want to find out.
I mean, the exciting thing is, if it was constructed on the spot, it must be somewhere between 15 to maybe 20,000 years old, because that's the last time that area of land underwater was open air land.
Yep.
If it was an object that fell from the sky, then we need to explain why there are these strange right angles on the object, corridors, apparent constructed shaped framings of holes in the object, including a triangle and a square.
Yeah.
That is suggestive of construction, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. For me, for what I have seen, it's something, of course, that is constructed. And
where do you think the whispering campaign came from that you were scammers? Do you think this was just trolls, or do you think this was more organized?
I think it was organized. I mean, we know that the Navy have been out there lurking around every time we are out there, almost every time. So they know the spot. They have, of course, been there. And,
so you strongly suspect that the authorities don't want you to find out what this object is.
Yeah. 100%.